Hello everyone, this is Serious Trivia, and today we're continuing the reign of Cao Rui Let's Talk Lore series with episode 6 titled Military Achievements. Now last time we ended with Cao Xiu's death after the defeat at Shiting, which led to a chain reaction of border issues for Wei, as Sun Quan first used the victory to crown himself as the Emperor of Wu, while Sima Yi's attack plan on Xiakou now also had to be abandoned, as the key eastern land offensive was no longer possible with the casualties suffered by the Wei eastern forces in the Battle of Shiting. Simultaneously, on the western front, Zhuge Liang would launch his second northern expedition, targeting Chencang. Fortunately, due to Cao Zhen's foresight, Chencang's defenses were bolstered just in time to stall Zhuge Liang's advances, but with Zhuge Liang's back-to-back northern expeditions out west, Cao Rui had to allow Gongsun Yuan's rise to power in Liaodong go unchecked, as Wei simply cannot afford to open up a third front, so appeasement became the name of the game. Furthermore, Cao Xiu's death created an opening for the Grand General position, and Cao Rui naturally turned to Cao Zhen, who was in charge of the Western Front. And with this promotion, the focus of the Wei military also shifted westward, as Cao Zhen wanted to organize an ambitious three-pronged counterattack against Zhuge Liang to seize back the initiative out west. Yet Cao Zhen's plan revolved around marching through the Ziwu path, which was the shortest path to Hanzhong, but also the most treacherous. And despite concerns voiced by others at court, Cao Zhen used his position as the new Grand General and the co-regent to convince Emperor Cao Rui to agree to the plan. Now, this plan was extremely ambitious in scope, as it involved using the Wei Western forces, the Wei Central Army, and Sima Yi's army in the Jin province, as Sima Yi was supposed to take the Mount Qi path to hit Hanzhong from the west. The Western forces under Guo Huai would hit Hanzhong from the Baoxie path from the north, and Cao Zhen would personally lead the Wei Central Army through the Ziwu path and hit Hanzhong from the east. Yet this plan fell apart right as it started, when Cao Zhen's army was defeated by the road conditions and the heavy rainfall inside the Ziwu path, as the army spent more than a month to barely reach the midway point of the path. This delay made the three-pronged attack disjointed, as Wei Yan was able to focus down the Wei Western forces coming from the north, and with no signs that the weather would be cleared, the Wei court decided to pull the plug on the campaign, as Cao Zhen was forced to retreat back from the Ziwu path without realizing his ambitious attack. With his costly gambit failing, Cao Zhen's health was also failing after suffering through a month of rough conditions inside the Ziwu path, and within 3 months of returning to Luoyang, Cao Zhen became the second co-regent of Cao Rui's reign to pass away, all in just the span of a year. And of course, with Cao Zhen's death, the position of Grand General vacates again, and with Sima Yi being the only co-regent left with military experience, he naturally takes command of the Wei's military, as his first task would be to defend against Zhuge Liang's 4th and 5th northern expeditions. And as we covered in our northern expedition series, these two exchanges with Zhuge Liang would not be kind on Sima Yi, as Zhuge Liang would decimate the Wei forces during the 4th northern expedition, but ultimately supply issue due to weather and Li Yan's mismanagement halted Zhuge Liang's advances. Now, despite losing against Zhuge Liang on the field, Sima Yi learned a valuable lesson from the 4th Northern Expedition, as he would spend the next few years preparing the Western Front for Zhuge Liang's next attempt, where Sima Yi would forgo his usual aggressive offensive approach to battles and opt instead for a stalling defensive strategy designed to outlast and outweight Zhuge Liang, whose health could not shoulder the entire burden of the Kingdom of Shuhan, as Zhuge Liang's death during the 5th Northern Expedition would also spell the end of the Shuhan threat, at least during Cao Rui's reign. And while Sima Yi was handling Zhuge Liang's 5th Northern Expedition, a planned simultaneous strike in collaboration with Sun Quan was also happening in Hefei at the time, as Sun Quan was now besieging the city for his 5th and final time as well. And with Cao Xiu and Cao Zhen both now deceased, Cao Rui, who is 29 years old by this time, decided to once again personally lead the reinforcement army against Sun Quan, despite voices arguing against this unnecessary risk and expense from the imperial court. But at the end of the day, a campaign led by the emperor himself had its gravitas and impact, as when Sun Quan heard that Cao Rui was personally marching against him in Hefei, he decided to abandon the siege, as Cao Rui would once again go on a military campaign, but not actually fight, much like his first campaign as emperor during Zhuge Liang's first northern expedition. And for those who are interested in details surrounding the 5th siege of Hefei, or any of Sun Quan's failures there, feel free to check out the lore series on the sieges of Hefei here on the channel as well. More importantly, with Zhuge Liang's 5th northern expedition and Sun Quan's 5th siege of Hefei both failing in 234, Cao Rui finally would have a period of peace from the two other kingdoms, as Wei can finally turn to internal matters such as Gongsun Yuan's growing ambitions in Liaodong. As just the year before, Gongsun Yuan was caught flirting with the kingdom of Wu, but since he decided at the last moment to backstab Sun Quan by killing his envoy and presenting their heads to the Wei court, Cao Rui ended up awarding Gongsun Yuan by naming him duke. But Gongsun Yuan was clearly a problem that needed to be solved eventually. So in 237, after withstanding another Wu attack in Jiangxia, this time led by Zhu Ran, Cao Rui would be persuaded by his former tutor and the new prefect of the You province in Guanqiu Jian to launch a military campaign against Gongsun Yuan, as Guanqiu Jian argued that the conquest of Liaodong can help jumpstart Cao Rui's military legacy. Yet Guanqiu Jian's first campaign would end in failure, as Cao Rui was forced to send Sima Yi and 40,000 additional troops to relaunch the Liaodong campaign in the following year. And as covered already in our 4th Kingdom of Yan Let's Talk Lore series, Sima Yi would outwit Gongsun Yuan and pacify the Liaodong region in early 238. Gongsun Yuan and the vast majority of his supporters would be executed by Sima Yi, and much of the Han population living in the Liaodong region would also be forced to migrate back to the Central Plains in a move that would come back to haunt Sima Yi's descendants in the future, as the vacuum of Han power allowed numerous nomadic tribes to strengthen their position in the area for the years to come. Now, Sima Yi's conquest of Liaodong would also become Cao Rui's greatest military achievement, as all the other campaigns during Cao Rui's reign were defensive in nature, apart from a few expeditions against the Xianbei nomadic tribes in the north. But more importantly, it would also be Cao Rui's last military achievement, as just 6 months after the end of the Liaodong campaign, Cao Rui would fall ill in early December of 238. And despite being just 33 years young, Cao Rui just could not shake his illness, as his health would deteriorate over the next month and a half, as he would eventually pass away on January 22nd, 239. Now, despite reaching the end of Cao Rui's life, this series is far from over, as so far we have only covered the geopolitical events surrounding Cao Rui's reign. In our final 2 episodes, we'll be first rewinding back to the beginning of Cao Rui's reign and cover his personal life, as while Cao Rui was a capable emperor in terms of statecraft, his fondness for collecting concubines and extravagant spending on palace constructions strained the Wei coffers and probably played a key role when it came to his early death. Then in our final episode, we'll look at Cao Rui's legacy in terms of policy changes, and most importantly his inheritance issues, as when Cao Rui died, he did not leave behind a single son by blood, as despite his extensive collection of concubines, Cao Rui only produced 3 biological sons, and none of them outlived him to inherit the throne. This, combined with Cao Rui's choices in co-regents, will contribute to the decline of Wei and the eventual usurpation by the Sima clan. But we're getting ahead of ourselves as this episode comes to an end here, and as always, hopefully you all have enjoyed this episode enough to hit that like button to help support the channel, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!